The royal decree came at dawn, sealed in blood and bound by pack law that hadn't been invoked in 300 years. Alpha Theron stood before the Grand Council, his jaw tight, his silver eyes fixed on the ancient scroll that condemned everything he'd fought to protect. The heir to the throne was missing. His son. His 3-month-old child who carried a bloodline so forbidden, so tangled in prophecy and betrayal, that even speaking the boy's name could shatter the fragile peace between the 5 wolf territories. And Theron knew, with the kind of certainty that comes from a blood oath sworn in darkness, that someone in this very room had taken him. But before we go deeper into this nightmare, tell me the city you're watching from so I can send you a hug. 'Cause you're going to need it. The silence in the throne room wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the silence of held breath, of warriors gripping sword hilts beneath ceremonial robes, of 100 pairs of eyes watching the Alpha's face for any crack in his armor. Theron's mate, Calliope, stood 3 steps behind him, her hands folded so tightly her knuckles had gone white. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Not since she'd woken in their chambers to find the cradle empty, the window open, and a single black feather resting where her son's head should have been. Elder Phocios spoke first, his voice like gravel scraping stone. The blood oath you swore when you took this throne, Alpha Theron, was clear. No forbidden bloodlines. No unions that threaten pack law. No heirs born of prophecy. His eyes, clouded with age but sharp with accusation, cut to Calliope. And yet you mated with an Omega from the exiled Corvus line. You created exactly what was forbidden. Calliope's breath caught, but she didn't move. Didn't defend herself. Because everything Phocios said was true. Her great-grandmother had been cast out 70 years ago for practicing blood magic, for trying to merge wolf and raven, for believing the old prophecies that spoke of a child who could shift between 2 forms. The Corvus name had been struck from every record, every monument, every family tree in the 5 territories. To mate with someone carrying that blood was treason. To bear a child with them was a death sentence. But Theron had done both. Where is the child? Counselor Demetria demanded, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. She was younger than the other elders, barely 40, with ambition burning in her eyes like wildfire. If he's truly missing, Alpha, then prove it. Show us the empty cradle. Let us search your chambers. Because frankly, there are whispers, dangerous whispers, that you've hidden him away to protect him from the very laws you swore to uphold. Theron's hands flexed at his sides, and for a moment, the room seemed to tilt toward violence. His wolf was right there, beneath his skin, snarling and snapping at the chains of civility. My son was taken from his cradle 2 nights ago. We've searched every corridor, every village, every hidden cave in our territory. He's not here. And whoever took him left this. He pulled the black feather from his coat and held it up. The mark of the Obsidian Circle. The reaction was immediate. Gasps rippled through the chamber. 3 counselors stood abruptly, their chairs scraping against marble. The Obsidian Circle was a myth, or so most believed. A secret society of wolves who rejected pack law entirely, who practiced the old magic, who believed in the prophecy so deeply they'd kill to see it fulfilled, or to stop it. They'd been blamed for a dozen disappearances over the centuries, but never proven, never caught. Lies, Demetria hissed. The Obsidian Circle is a ghost story we tell children to make them behave. You expect us to believe. I expect you to help me find my son. Theron roared, and the sound echoed off the vaulted ceiling, primal and raw. I don't care what you believe. I don't care if you think I'm a traitor for mating with Calliope. My child is out there, and every second we waste in this room is another second he's in danger. Phocios raised a gnarled hand for silence. If the child truly carries forbidden blood, Alpha, then perhaps his disappearance is the mercy we should have demanded from the start. Pack law exists for a reason. The prophecy is 1,000 years old. Calliope's voice cut through the room like broken glass. She stepped forward, every line of her body trembling with barely contained rage. It speaks of a child born of 2 worlds, yes. A child who could unite the territories or destroy them. But it also speaks of choice. Of free will. My son is 3 months old. He hasn't chosen anything. And you, all of you, are ready to let him die because you're afraid of what he might become. The room erupted. Counselors shouted over each other, some defending Calliope, most condemning her. Theron moved to her side, his presence a shield, but the damage was done. She'd admitted it. Admitted that her son was the child of prophecy, that everything they'd feared was real. Elder Cleo, who'd been silent until now, stood slowly. She was ancient, older than anyone in the room. Her face a map of wrinkles and wisdom. "Silence," she said, and somehow her quiet voice carried more weight than all the shouting combined. "The child is missing. Whether we believe in prophecy or not, whether we accept this union or not, a baby has been taken. We are wolves. We protect our young. All of them." Her words hung in the air like a verdict. "But," Cleo continued, her gaze settling on Theron with something almost like pity, "if we find him, if we bring him back, there will be consequences. The blood oath cannot be ignored. You knew the law when you mated with Calliope. You knew what it would cost." Theron's jaw clenched so hard Calliope could hear his teeth grind. "Then I'll pay it. After we find him." "No." Calliope's voice was steady now, cold with a mother's fury. "You won't pay anything. Because I'm the one who broke the law. I'm the one carrying the forbidden bloodline. If there are consequences, they're mine to bear." "Calliope!" "I mean it, Theron." She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time since their son vanished, he saw tears in her eyes. "I won't let you die for my blood. I won't let him grow up without a father because of me." The Grand Council watched this exchange with varying degrees of discomfort, calculation, and cold satisfaction. This was what some of them had wanted all along. Division, weakness, an excuse to remove Theron from power and install someone more compliant. Counselor Nicodemus cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should discuss." A sound interrupted him. A low, keening wail that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It started as a whisper, a breath of wind through the throne room's high windows, then grew louder, more insistent. The torches along the walls flickered. The temperature dropped so suddenly that frost formed on the marble floor in spiraling patterns. And then the doors burst open. A figure stumbled into the throne room, cloaked in shadow and bleeding from a dozen wounds. It took Calliope a moment to recognize her. Xantha, one of the younger pack members, barely 18, who'd volunteered to join the search parties. She collapsed to her knees, gasping. Her hands pressed against a gash in her side that looked like it had been made by claws. "They have him," Xantha choked out. "The Obsidian Circle. I found their camp in the Blackwood Ravine. There are dozens of them, maybe more. They're performing some kind of ritual. I heard the baby crying, I swear I heard him, but they saw me and I barely." She coughed and blood spattered the white marble. "They said to tell you. Tell the Alpha that if he wants his son back, he has to come alone. No pack. No soldiers. No mate. Just him. They said they'd wait until the moon reaches its peak tonight. And if he doesn't come..." She couldn't finish the sentence. Theron was already moving, striding toward the doors with lethal purpose. "Get her to the healers. Now." "Alpha, wait," Photios called out, but Theron didn't stop. Calliope was right behind him, her hand catching his arm. "You can't go alone. It's a trap. They want you separated from the pack, they want. They have our son." His voice was barely human, more growl than words. "I don't care if it's a trap. I don't care if every member of the Obsidian Circle is waiting for me. I'm getting him back. Then I'm coming with you." "No. Theron. No." He rounded on her, and the anguish in his eyes nearly broke her. "If something happens to me, he needs you. The pack needs you. I can't lose both of you. I won't." She wanted to argue, wanted to fight him on this, but the desperate love in his voice stopped her. Instead, she grabbed his face between her hands and kissed him, fierce and claiming and possibly goodbye. "You come back to me," she whispered against his lips. Both of you. That's not a request, Alpha. It's a command. He pressed his forehead to hers for one long moment, breathing her in. Then he was gone, moving through the throne room with the speed and grace of a wolf in his prime, leaving Calliope standing alone before the Grand Council. The silence that followed his departure was different from before. Heavier. More dangerous. Well, Demetria said softly, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. I suppose now we wait to see if our Alpha is as strong as he claims. Calliope turned to face her, and something in her expression made 3 counselors step back. If you're hoping he fails, she said quietly. If any of you are hoping this is your chance to seize power, let me be very clear. I am an Omega from an exiled bloodline, yes. I am forbidden, yes. But I am also a mother who will burn this entire territory to ash if anything happens to my family. Pack law, blood oaths, prophecies. None of it means anything compared to that. So pray to whatever gods you still believe in that Theron succeeds. Because if he doesn't, you'll discover exactly why my family line was exiled in the first place. She let that threat hang in the air, then turned and walked out of the throne room with her head high, leaving the Grand Council in chaos behind her. The Blackwood Ravine was 3 hours from the palace at a dead run, and Theron covered the distance in 2. He shifted the moment he left the palace grounds, his wolf form bursting through skin and bone with practiced ease. Silver fur, battle scars from a dozen territorial disputes, muscles coiled with power and desperation. He ran like the world was ending, because for him it was. The Obsidian Circle had his son. His 3-month-old boy who'd only just started smiling, who had Calliope's dark hair and his silver eyes, who was completely helpless against whatever sick ritual they had planned. The rage that burned in Theron's chest was so hot it nearly choked him. He'd killed for less. He'd torn apart rogue packs, challenged alphas twice his size, survived the blood oath ceremony that should have stopped his heart. But none of that prepared him for the primal terror of being a father whose child was in danger. The forest thickened as he approached the ravine, ancient trees with trunks wide as houses, their branches blocking out the afternoon sun. Temperature dropped. The air tasted wrong, metallic and bitter, like magic performed without permission, without balance. He could smell them now. Dozens of wolves, their scents tangled with herbs and smoke and something darker. Blood magic. The kind that required sacrifice. Theron shifted back to human form as he reached the edge of the ravine, his body adjusting instantly to the cold. He was naked, as all shifters were after transformation, but he barely noticed. His focus was locked on the clearing below, where torches formed a perfect circle around a stone altar. And on that altar, wrapped in black silk, was his son. The baby wasn't crying. That was what scared Theron most. He was just lying there, staring up at the darkening sky with those impossibly wide silver eyes, as if he understood exactly what was happening, as if he'd already accepted it. Welcome, Alpha Theron. The voice came from the shadows. A woman stepped into the torchlight, tall and wrapped in robes the color of midnight. Her face was covered by a raven mask, but her voice was educated, refined, noble even. We were beginning to think you wouldn't come. Give me my son. Theron's voice was flat, empty of everything except lethal promise. Give him to me now, and maybe I'll let some of you live. The woman laughed. You're in no position to make threats, Alpha. Look around. He did. Slowly. There were at least 40 wolves surrounding the clearing, all in human form, all armed with blades marked with glowing runes. Blood magic weapons. One cut from those blades and he wouldn't heal. He'd bleed out like a human, slow and agonizing. The Obsidian Circle has waited 300 years for this night, the woman continued, moving toward the altar with reverent steps. 300 years since the last child of prophecy was born. That one was killed before he could fulfill his destiny, before he could unite the territories or tear them apart. We won't make that mistake again. You're going to kill him. Theron's voice broke on the last word. An infant. You're going to murder an innocent baby because of something he hasn't done, something he might never do. We're not going to kill him, Alpha. The woman reached the altar, her hand hovering over the baby's chest. We're going to complete him. The ritual will unlock his true nature, force the raven blood to merge fully with the wolf. He'll become what the prophecy foretold, the first true shifter in 1,000 years. And then, when he's old enough, when he's been raised by us, trained by us, he'll unite the territories under our rule. No more Grand Council. No more outdated pack laws. No more alphas who mate with forbidden bloodlines and then pretend to uphold the very laws they break. Theron took a step forward, and instantly 20 blades were pointed at his throat. He stopped, every muscle in his body screaming at him to fight, to tear through them all and grab his son. But he'd die before he reached the altar. He knew it. They knew it. Why tell me this? He asked, buying time, desperately searching for any opening, any chance. Why bring me here if you're just going to take him anyway? Because the ritual requires blood from the father, the woman said simply. Alpha blood given willingly. Oh, don't worry, it won't kill you. Just a few drops. But it has to be your choice. You have to give it freely, or the magic won't work. She paused, her head tilting behind the mask. So here's your choice, Alpha Theron. Give us your blood, let us complete the ritual, and your son lives. He grows up, he becomes powerful, he fulfills his destiny. You'll never see him again, but he'll be alive. Or refuse and we kill him right now. Quick and merciful. Either way, the prophecy ends tonight. Theron's mind raced. This wasn't just a trap. It was a perversion of everything he believed in. Give his blood willingly and doom his son to a life as a weapon. Or refuse and watch him die. There's a third option, he said quietly. Oh, I challenge you. Single combat. You and me. If I win, I take my son and we leave. If you win, you get your blood and your ritual. The woman actually seemed to consider this. Interesting. But no. We didn't come this far, plan this carefully, just to gamble everything on. A howl split the night. Long and mournful and absolutely furious. Theron's head snapped up. He knew that howl. Knew it better than his own heartbeat. Calliope. She came through the trees like vengeance incarnate, her wolf form sleek and dark as shadow, her eyes blazing with maternal rage. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, pouring into the ravine from every direction, was the pack. Not just a dozen warriors. Not just the soldiers. Every wolf in the territory. Hundreds of them, their eyes reflecting torchlight, their growls a symphony of violence waiting to be unleashed. The Obsidian Circle scrambled to adjust, blades swinging toward this new threat, but they were surrounded now, outnumbered 5 to 1. The woman in the raven mask snarled. You were supposed to come alone. I did, Theron said, and he was smiling now, fierce and sharp. But you made one critical mistake. You forgot that I'm not just an alpha, I'm a mate. And you took something from her too. Calliope shifted mid-stride. Her transformation so smooth it looked like water flowing upward. She landed in human form beside Theron, naked and uncaring. Her attention fixed entirely on the altar where her son lay. Put down your blades, she said, her voice carrying across the clearing with unexpected power. Put them down now, and I promise you'll live to see tomorrow. You have no authority here, Omega, the woman spat. You're nothing but a forbidden bloodline, I am a mother, Calliope interrupted, and something in those 3 words made even the most hardened warriors of the Obsidian Circle hesitate. And I will tear apart anyone who tries to hurt my child. Your prophecy, your ritual, your grand plans. None of it matters. He's mine. He's ours. And you will not touch him. The standoff stretched, taut as a bowstring. 40 members of the Obsidian Circle, armed with blood magic. Hundreds of wolves from Theron's pack, ready to die for their alpha and his forbidden family. Then, from the altar the baby made a sound. Not a cry. Not a whimper. Something else. Something that made every wolf in the clearing, circle and pack alike, freeze. It was a caw. the harsh, sharp call of a raven. The baby's body began to shimmer, his skin rippling with the same iridescent darkness as raven feathers. His eyes, those impossible silver eyes, flickered between wolf and bird, ancient and aware in a way no 3-month-old should be. "No," the woman in the mask whispered. "No, it's too soon, he's not ready." But the transformation didn't stop. The baby's tiny hands stretched and darkened, not quite becoming wings, not quite staying human. His cries turned to something in between. Magic poured off him in waves, wild and uncontrolled, the kind of raw power that could crack the earth or shatter minds. The prophecy wasn't something that needed to be unlocked or forced or ritualized. It was already happening. Theron moved on instinct, years of training overriding the shock. He lunged for the altar, his hands reaching for his son even as the baby's form flickered and shifted. Behind him, Calliope was moving too, her own transformation beginning, as if her body recognized what her son needed and was trying to mirror it, to guide it. The Obsidian Circle scattered, some fleeing into the forest, others dropping to their knees in what looked like worship. The woman in the mask stood frozen, watching her carefully laid plans crumble as the child did exactly what the prophecy claimed, chose his own path, his own power, his own time. Theron's hands closed around his son's shifting form, and the moment he made contact, the wild magic steadied. Not stopped but calmed. Like a storm recognizing its harbor. The baby's eyes locked onto his father's face, and slowly, so slowly, he shifted back. Back to human. Back to a 3-month-old boy with silver eyes and his mother's dark hair. Back to himself. Calliope was there a heartbeat later, her arms wrapping around both of them, her own body still half transformed, caught between wolf and woman. The three of them huddled together on the altar, surrounded by chaos, and for just a moment, nothing else mattered. "I've got you," Theron whispered into his son's hair. "Both of you. I've got you." The pack closed in around them, forming a protective circle, and slowly the Blackwood ravine fell silent again. They returned to the palace at dawn, victorious and exhausted and fundamentally changed. The Obsidian Circle had been scattered, its members either captured or driven into hiding. The Grand Council was waiting in the throne room, having apparently not moved since the night before, their faces haggard with sleepless anxiety. Elder Cleo was the first to speak. "You found him." "We did." Theron stood before them, his son cradled in his arms, Calliope at his side. "And you all saw what happened. The prophecy isn't something we can control or suppress or ritual our way around. It's already begun. My son is the child of two worlds, and he will choose his own destiny. Not the Obsidian Circle. Not this council. Him." Photios opened his mouth to argue, but Cleo raised her hand. "The blood oath," she said quietly. "You swore to uphold pack law. You mated with a forbidden bloodline. The consequences are mine to face," Calliope interrupted. She stepped forward, her chin high despite the exhaustion pulling at her features. "I said it before and I'll say it again. I'm the one carrying the Corvus blood. I'm the one who chose to mate with an alpha despite knowing the law. If there are consequences, I'll bear them." "No." The word came from an unexpected source. Counselor Demetria. She stood slowly, her face unreadable. "No, you won't. Because I'm invoking the right of challenge." The room went silent. The right of challenge was ancient, older even than pack law. It allowed any counselor to challenge the validity of a law if they could prove it caused more harm than good. It required a vote, a trial, evidence presented before the entire pack. It was messy and political and could take months. But it also meant Calliope couldn't be punished. Not yet. "Why?" Theron asked, suspicion evident in his voice. "You've been pushing for us to face consequences since this began. Why help us now?" Demetria's expression was complicated, ambition and calculation warring with something that might have been genuine feeling. "Because I watched what happened last night through the scrying glass. Every counselor did. We saw your son transform. We saw the prophecy begin to unfold. And I realized something. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Pack law was created to protect us. But if enforcing that law means killing a child, means punishing love, means standing in the way of something that's clearly bigger than any of us, then maybe the law itself needs to change. Not everyone agreed. Photios looked ready to explode. 3 other counselors were already shouting objections. But enough remained silent, thoughtful, that Theron knew they had a chance. "The right of challenge has been invoked," Cleo said, her ancient voice cutting through the noise. "We will debate this matter properly, with the full pack present. Until then, Alpha Theron and his family are under the protection of the Council. No punishment, no exile, no consequences until the matter is settled." She fixed Photios with a hard stare. All in favor. The vote was close. Closer than Theron would have liked. But it passed. They were safe. For now. 3 months passed like a held breath. The right of challenge sparked debates that spread through all 5 territories. Some packs supported Theron and Calliope, arguing that love and prophecy shouldn't be crimes. Others demanded strict adherence to pack law, claiming that exceptions would lead to chaos. The Corvus name was spoken aloud for the first time in 70 years. Its history dissected and argued over in every meeting hall and tavern. And through it all, the baby, whom they'd finally named Aristeus, meaning the best, continued to grow, continued to change. He didn't transform again, not fully. But sometimes when he laughed, his eyes would flicker with that raven darkness. When he cried, his voice carried harmonics that shouldn't exist in a human throat. He was healthy, happy, clearly loved. But he was also undeniably other. Undeniably the child of prophecy. Theron found Calliope in their chambers one evening, staring out the window at the territory spread below them. She was holding Aristeus, rocking him gently, humming an old song from her exiled bloodline. "They're going to decide soon," she said without turning around. "Cleo told me this morning. The vote will happen at the next full moon." "I know." He moved behind her, wrapping his arms around both of them. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together," she finished. "I know. But Theron." She finally turned to look at him, and there were tears in her eyes. "What if they vote to uphold pack law? What if they decide we're too dangerous, that he's too dangerous? Then we run." His answer was immediate, certain. "We take Aristeus and we run. And we don't stop until we find somewhere safe." "You'd give up your pack, your title, everything you've built, in a heartbeat." He kissed her temple, gentle and absolute. "You're my pack now. You and him. Nothing else matters." She leaned into him, and they stood there together, a forbidden family watching the sunset, waiting for a judgment that could destroy them or set them free. The vote came on a night when 3 moons hung in the sky. A rare alignment that hadn't occurred in 50 years. The entire pack gathered in the great courtyard. Thousands of wolves from all 5 territories, here to witness history. The Grand Council stood on the raised platform, Elder Cleo at the center. She looked impossibly old in the moonlight, like she might crumble to dust at any moment. But her voice was strong. "We are here to decide whether pack law, specifically the prohibition against mating with forbidden bloodlines, serves our people or harms them. We have heard arguments from all sides. We have considered the prophecy, the history, the risk and the hope. Now we vote." One by one, the counselors stood and cast their votes. Some for upholding pack law. Some for changing it. The numbers climbed, tension ratcheting higher with each declaration. It came down to Elder Photios. He stood slowly, his face carved from stone. "I have been a counselor for 40 years, he began. "I have upheld pack law without question, believing it was the foundation of everything we are. But these past months, I have watched Alpha Theron and his mate. I have watched them fight for their son with a ferocity that puts our strongest warriors to shame. And I have realized something." He paused, his gaze finding Theron and Calliope in the crowd. "Pack law was meant to protect us. But we forgot that family, True family, the kind worth dying for, is the strongest protection of all. The kind of love I've seen in them, the kind of courage. That is what makes us wolves. Not laws, not prophecies. Love and loyalty and the willingness to stand against the world for those we hold dear. His voice dropped, heavy with emotion. I vote to change the law. I vote to allow this family to exist without shame, without fear, without punishment. And I pray that someday we can all love as fiercely as they do. The courtyard erupted. Cheers and protests, celebration and outrage, all tangling together under the 3 moons. But the vote was decided. Pack law would change. Calliope collapsed against Theron, sobbing with relief so profound it hurt. He held her, held their son, and for the first time in months, he let himself believe they might actually have a future. But prophecies are tricky things. They don't end just because you want them to. 5 years later, on a night much like that voting night, when 3 moons hung in the sky again, Aristeus woke screaming. Not from a nightmare. From something else. Something that pulled at the raven blood in his veins, the wolf power in his bones, the destiny written into his very existence. Calliope ran to his room, Theron right behind her. They found their son, now 5 years old, tall for his age, with silver eyes that saw too much, standing at the window. His back was to them. His small hands pressed against the glass. "Mama," he said, his voice strange. "Well, the other children are calling. The ones like me. They need help. Other children." Calliope's blood went cold. "Aristeus, what do you mean?" He turned to face them, and his eyes were full raven now, depthless and ancient. "The prophecy didn't end with me. Started with me. There are others being born. In all 5 territories. In the human lands. Freewhere. Children of 2 worlds. And the people who fear them. They're hunting them." Theron and Calliope exchanged a look of pure horror. "We have to help them," Aristeus continued. "We have to find them before the hunters do. Before the people like the Obsidian Circle find them. Before they're killed or stolen or turned into weapons." He held out his small hand to his parents. "Will you help me?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Their fight wasn't over. It had just begun. And somewhere in the night, in villages and cities and hidden places across the territories, other children were waking. Other prophecies were stirring. Other families were about to discover that their worlds would never be the same. Theron took his son's hand. Then Calliope took the other. "Always," they said together. "Because that's what family does. That's what love demands." And prophecy or no prophecy, law or no law, they would face whatever came next. Together. The next morning, Elder Cleo arrived at their chambers before dawn. She looked even older than she had at the vote 5 years ago, as if every year had been a decade. But her eyes were sharp, urgent. "You know," she said simply. "It wasn't a question. About the other children." Theron asked. "Yes. Aristeus told us last night." "Then you know what's coming." Cleo moved to the window, her ancient hands gripping the frame like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "The Grand Council received reports 3 weeks ago. 15 children born in the last 2 years, all showing signs of dual nature. Wolf and raven. Wolf and eagle. Wolf and serpent. The old bloodlines, the ones we thought we'd bred out centuries ago, they're coming back. Stronger. Wilder. And the council wants to suppress them," Calliope said bitterly. "Just like they tried to suppress us." "Some do," Cleo admitted. "Phocios died last year, as you know. The new counselors. Many of them weren't present for your vote. They don't understand what you fought for. They just see threat. They're already drafting new laws, new restrictions." She turned to face them, and there were tears in her ancient eyes. "I'm telling you this because you need to move quickly. If you're going to save these children, you have to find them before the council does." "You're asking us to defy the Grand Council again," Theron said slowly. "To undermine them. I'm asking you to do what's right. What you've always done. Cleo smiled, sad and proud. You changed pack law once. Maybe it's time to break it entirely. They left the territory that night. Not fleeing exactly, but not staying either. Theron named his brother Regent, someone he trusted to hold the pack together in his absence. Calliope gathered what little they could carry. Gold, weapons, maps of the territories and beyond. And Aristeas, wide-eyed and frightened and impossibly brave, held onto a small raven feather he'd found on his windowsill that morning. Their first stop was a village on the western border, where reports placed a 2-year-old girl who'd allegedly grown wolf claws while still in her crib. Her parents were terrified, isolated, convinced their daughter was cursed. When Theron and Calliope knocked on their door, the mother opened it with a crossbow aimed at their heads. "Leave us alone," she hissed. "We've done nothing wrong. Our daughter is like our son," Calliope interrupted gently, pushing the crossbow aside and stepping into the house uninvited. "She's like our son. And we're here to help." The mother stared at them, at Aristeas standing between them with his 2 old eyes, and something in her face crumbled. Relief mixed with terror mixed with desperate hope. "You can help her," she whispered. "Truly." "We're going to try," Theron said. "But we need to move quickly. There are people coming, people who will want to take her to study her or kill her or use her. We can keep you safe. All of you." It took 3 hours of careful explanation, of showing their own scars and histories, of Aristeas demonstrating his own halting control over his dual nature. But eventually the family agreed. They packed what they could carry and joined Theron's growing caravan. One family became 2, then 5, then 12. Each child was different. Some could shift partially, growing feathers along their arms or fur only on their hands. Others heard voices in languages no one spoke anymore. One boy, barely 4 years old, could see through the eyes of ravens and wolves simultaneously, watching the world from 2 perspectives at once. They were all terrified, all powerful, all hunted. And behind them, always 3 days back but getting closer, came the hunters. Not the Obsidian Circle this time. Something worse. Something sanctioned by 3 of the 5 territorial councils. An official purge, they called it. A cleansing of bloodlines that threatened pack stability. They had legal authority, pack law backing them up, and absolutely no mercy. Theron knew they couldn't run forever. 6 months into their journey, they'd gathered 43 families. 43 children of prophecy, each one a living testament to the old bloodlines refusing to die. They made camp in the Bone Mountains, a harsh and unforgiving range that marked the boundary between wolf territory and the wild lands beyond. It was Calliope who first suggested what they all knew was inevitable. "We can't keep running," she said one night, standing beside the campfire while the children slept in tents around them. "Eventually they'll corner us. Eventually we'll run out of places to hide. So what do you propose?" Theron asked, though he already knew. "We fight." Her voice was steady, certain. "Not just to survive. We fight to change everything. We create our own territory, our own laws. A place where children like ours don't have to hide what they are." "You're talking about rebellion," one of the fathers said, his voice tight with fear and hope. "You're talking about war." "I'm talking about freedom," Calliope corrected. "I'm talking about building something new from the ashes of laws that were designed to keep us small and afraid and compliant. The 5 territories. They're failing. They've been failing for centuries. This," she gestured to the sleeping children, "this is evolution. This is the future. And we can either run from it or embrace it." Theron watched her speak. This Omega from an exiled bloodline who'd somehow become the most powerful voice in their rebellion, and fell in love with her all over again. "If we do this," he said quietly, "there's no going back. The councils will come for us with everything they have. We'll be branded traitors, rogues, enemies of pack law itself." "Good," Aristeas said from behind them. They turned to find him standing at the edge of the firelight, no longer trying to hide the raven darkness swirling in his eyes. "Let them come. Let them see what we've become. What we can be when we stop being afraid." He was only 5 years old, but he spoke with the weight of prophecy itself. The war, when it came, was brutal and short. The hunters arrived at dawn, expecting to find a scattered group of refugees, easy targets. Instead, they found 43 families who'd spent 6 months learning to fight together, to blend their unique powers into something cohesive and devastating. Children who could shift between forms mid-battle, confusing opponents. Parents who fought with the desperation of those protecting their young. And at the center of it all, Theron and Calliope, fighting side by side like they'd been born for this moment. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the hunters lay dead or fleeing, and Theron stood on a ridge overlooking the Bone Mountains with blood on his hands and victory bitter in his mouth. They'd won. But the cost? 5 parents dead, 2 children wounded, and the knowledge that this was just the beginning, made the victory feel hollow. "They'll send more," Calliope said, joining him on the ridge. She was wounded, a deep gash across her shoulder that was already healing, but healing slower than it should. Blood magic blade. "The councils won't stop. Not now. Then we make them an offer they can't refuse," Theron said, an idea forming. "We go to them. Directly. Not as refugees or rebels but as a new pack. We claim this territory, the Bone Mountains and the wild lands beyond, as our own. We invoke the right of territory, the old law that says any alpha strong enough to hold land can claim it. That law hasn't been used in 200 years. Exactly. They've forgotten it exists. But it's still valid, still part of the ancient pack codes they claim to uphold." He turned to her, fierce and determined. "We build our own territory here. Our own laws. A place for all the children like Aristeas, all the forbidden bloodlines. And we dare the councils to challenge us openly." It was insane. It was brilliant. It was possibly the only chance they had. The declaration went out 3 days later. Theron sent messengers to all 5 territorial councils simultaneously, each one carrying the same message written in his own hand. "By right of blood, by right of strength, and by the ancient law of territory, I claim the Bone Mountains and the wild lands beyond as sovereign ground. This territory will be known as Ethermore, and it will be a haven for all bloodlines, forbidden or otherwise. Any who challenge this claim may do so in formal combat, as pack law allows. Until then, we are beyond your jurisdiction." The reactions were immediate and varied. 2 councils laughed it off as the desperate bluff of a rogue alpha. One council immediately declared war, sending armies that would take months to reach the Bone Mountains. And 2 councils, one of which included Elder Cleo, sent carefully worded letters that amounted to grudging, unofficial recognition. They had their territory, barely, hanging by the thinnest thread of legal authority. But they had it. 5 years passed. Ethermore grew from a collection of tents in the mountains to a real settlement. Houses carved into cliff faces, training grounds where children learned to control their dual natures, meeting halls where laws were debated not by councils but by every voice willing to speak. It was chaotic, messy, beautiful. And it worked. Word spread. More families came, fleeing territories where their children's gifts were seen as curses. The population swelled to 300, then 500, then nearly 1,000. Not all of them were children of prophecy. Many were just wolves who'd grown tired of the rigid pack laws, who wanted something different, something freer. Aristeas, now 10 years old, had become something of a legend. The first child of prophecy, the one who'd sparked the rebellion, the prince of a territory built on defiance. He trained daily with his powers, learning to shift between wolf and raven forms with increasing ease, though full transformation still eluded him. He was thoughtful, kind, and carried the weight of his status with uncomfortable grace. But he wasn't the only one anymore. 43 children had become 60, then 80. An entire generation of dual-natured wolves, each one unique, each one powerful. They called themselves the Etherborn, and they represented everything the old territories had tried to suppress. Theron stood on the walls of Ethermore one evening, watching the sun set over mountains that were now his by right and by blood, and allowed himself a moment of peace. They'd built something here. Something that might actually last. Enjoying the view, Alpha? He turned to find Counselor Demetria, former counselor he supposed, since she'd left her position 5 years ago to join them, climbing the steps to join him. She'd aged in those years, stress and hard work etching lines around her eyes, but she looked more alive than she ever had in the council chambers. Just thinking about how far we've come, he said. And how far we still have to go. She smiled wryly. The army from the Eastern Council will be here in 3 weeks. 1,500 soldiers, all trained in blood magic combat. They're not coming to negotiate, Theron. They're coming to erase us. His moment of peace shattered. 3 weeks. Maybe less if they push hard. She leaned against the wall, her expression troubled. We have maybe 400 who can fight, and half of them are barely trained. The Aetherborn are powerful, yes, but most of them are still children. We can't put 10-year-olds on the front lines. We won't have a choice if they reach our walls. Then maybe we don't let them reach our walls. Calliope's voice came from behind them. She climbed the steps with Aristeus at her side, both of them looking grim. We've been discussing it with the other families. There's another option. A risky one. I'm listening. Aristeus stepped forward, and in the fading light, his eyes were pure raven. The prophecy, he said simply. It's not just about me. It's about all of us, all the Aetherborn. Together we can do something the old prophecies mentioned but no one thought was possible. We can merge. Temporarily. Pool our powers into one unified force. Theron's blood went cold. That's blood magic. Dark blood magic. The kind that requires sacrifice, Calliope finished softly. Yes, it requires one person to anchor the magic, to be the vessel that holds all that power. And it's painful. Possibly fatal. Absolutely not. Theron's voice was hard as stone. I won't let you use children as magical weapons. I won't let you risk their lives. I'll do it, Aristeus interrupted. I'll be the anchor. No. Father, listen. I said no. The words came out as a roar, primal and desperate. I didn't spend 10 years protecting you, building this territory, fighting for your right to exist, just to watch you kill yourself in some ritual that might not even work. Aristeus looked at him with eyes far too old for his face. And I won't watch everyone here die because I was too scared to use the power I was born with. This is what the prophecy was about, Father. Not just existing, not just surviving, but choosing to stand up and fight when it matters most. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. There has to be another way, Theron whispered. But deep down, looking at his son's determined face, at the army approaching from the east, at the territory full of families depending on him, he knew there wasn't. The ritual took 3 days to prepare. Every Aetherborn child who could contribute, 73 of them, gathered in the central plaza of Ethermore. Their parents stood in a protective circle around them, ready to defend the ritual site to their last breath. Calliope had drawn the runes herself, ancient symbols from the Corvus bloodline that hadn't been used in centuries. And at the center, sitting cross-legged on bare stone, was Aristeus. He looked small. Impossibly small. A 10-year-old boy about to channel the power of 73 prophetic bloodlines through his body. Theron knelt beside him, his hands gripping his son's shoulders. You don't have to do this. We can fight them conventionally, we can. We'd lose, Aristeus said simply. You know we would. This is our chance, Father. Maybe our only one. He smiled, trying to be brave, and Theron's heart shattered. Besides, I'm strong. Stronger than you think. I can handle this. And if you can't, then you make sure everyone remembers why we tried. He hugged his father tight, a child's embrace that carried the weight of goodbye. I love you. Tell Mother I love her too. Calliope was already there, kneeling on Aristeus's other side, tears streaming down her face. You come back to us, she whispered fiercely. That's not a request. It's a command. Remember. Aristeus laughed through his own tears. I remember. The ritual began at dawn. 73 children joined hands, forming concentric circles around Aristeas. They began to chant in languages old as the mountains themselves, their voices blending into something that wasn't quite wolf and wasn't quite raven but somehow both. Power built in the air, visible as swirls of silver and black, as the scent of storms and feathers and wild places. And Aristeas began to glow. It started as a faint shimmer, like heat haze rising from summer stone. Then brighter, brighter. His body became translucent, showing the power building inside him like a star being born. His eyes blazed with combined light of every etherborn in the circle, reflecting their gifts, their hopes, their very souls. The pain hit him all at once. He screamed, a sound that was wolf howl and raven cry and human agony twisted together. His body convulsed, trying to contain power it wasn't meant to hold. Blood ran from his nose, his ears, his eyes. The runes around him flared so bright people had to look away. "Stop it!" Theron roared, lunging forward. "Stop the ritual, you're killing him." Calliope held him back with strength born of desperation. "If we stop now, the backlash will kill all of them. He has to finish it. He has to." Aristeas's body arched backward, his mouth open in a silent scream. And then, impossibly, he began to transform. Not into wolf, not into raven, into something new. His body elongated, growing taller, broader, more. His skin rippled with patterns of feather and fur simultaneously. Wings burst from his back, massive and silver black and clearly capable of flight. His face remained human but his eyes, gods. His eyes contained entire skies, entire forests. The wild freedom of both forms merged into something transcendent. The ether-born. Not 73 children lending power to one, but 73 children merged into one form, one being, one impossibly powerful manifestation of the prophecy itself. When Aristeas, when the ether-born, spoke, it was with 73 voices layered over each other. "The army comes. We go to meet them." And with a single beat of those impossible wings, he launched into the sky. The Eastern Council's army reached the borders of Ethermore 3 hours later. 1,500 soldiers, armored and armed, marching in perfect formation. At their head rode General Sophocles, a legendary warrior who'd never lost a battle, who'd crushed 3 rebellions and put down 5 rogue alphas. He expected this to be routine. A quick siege, a slaughter of refugees, and home by the new moon. What he found instead was a creature from legend blocking their path. The etherborn landed in the center of the road with enough force to crack the stone. 20 feet tall, wrapped in silver-black feathers and fur, eyes blazing with the power of 73 souls. He, Aristeas, spread his wings wide, casting shadows over the entire army. "Turn back," 73 voices said as one. "This territory is claimed. These people are under our protection. Turn back or face the full force of the prophecy you tried so hard to destroy." General Sophocles, to his credit, didn't flinch. "That's exactly what we're here to destroy. All soldiers, ready blood magic weapons. On my mark." The etherborn moved. It was like watching a storm given form. He flowed through the army's ranks faster than thought, wings and claws and teeth and fury. Blood magic weapons shattered against his transformed hide. Soldiers who'd trained for decades couldn't land a single blow. Not because he was invincible, but because he was 73 fighters moving as one, anticipating every attack, countering every strategy. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, General Sophocles knelt in the mud, his sword broken, his army scattered and fleeing. The etherborn stood over him, breathing hard blood, his own and others, staining his feathers. "You could have killed us all," Sophocles said quietly. "Why didn't you?" "Because that's not who we are." Aristeas's voice rose above the other 72, dominant but not alone. "We don't want to destroy the old territories. We just want to exist without fear. Go back to your council. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them that the children they tried to suppress are now strong enough to fight back. And tell them that if they come again, we might not be so merciful." Sophocles stared up at this impossible creature, this living prophecy, and for the first time in 40 years of military service, he felt genuine fear. Not fear of death. Fear of being on the wrong side of history. He left without another word. The transformation couldn't be sustained forever. 3 hours after the battle, the Etherborn began to flicker, the merged form becoming unstable. The 73 children separated all at once, collapsing in the plaza where the ritual had begun. Most were unconscious. Some were merely exhausted. All were alive, except Aristeas. He lay in the center of the plaza, not moving, barely breathing. His body showed the strain of channeling that much power. Burn marks traced the patterns of the runes across his skin. His eyes were closed, and when Theron and Calliope reached him, his heartbeat was so faint they almost couldn't find it. "No," Calliope whispered, cradling her son's head in her lap. "No, no, no. Aristeas, stay with us. You promised. You promised you'd come back." The healers came, but their magic couldn't touch whatever damage the ritual had done. This wasn't physical. This was soul deep. 73 lives channeled through one vessel, and some of them had stayed behind, tangled in Aristeas's being like echoes refusing to fade. For 3 days, he lay between life and death. The entire territory held its breath. The Etherborn children took turns sitting with him, whispering apologies and gratitude and prayers. Theron didn't leave his side once, his hand gripping his son's like a lifeline. And Calliope sang the old Corvus songs, trying to call her boy back from whatever darkness had claimed him. On the 4th day, his eyes opened. Not silver anymore, not fully raven, but somewhere in between, swirled with traces of all 73 children he'd merged with. He looked at his parents and smiled weakly. "Did we win?" His voice was his own again, young and tired and alive. Theron laughed, the sound breaking into a sob. "Yeah, kid. We won. Good." Aristeas closed his eyes again, but this time it was just sleep. Normal healing sleep. "That's good." The Eastern Council never sent another army. Neither did the other 3 councils. Word of what happened spread through all 5 territories like wildfire, and with it came something unexpected. Respect. The kind of respect born from fear, yes, but also from recognition. Ethermore had proven itself. The Etherborn had proven themselves. Slowly, grudgingly, the old territories began to acknowledge Ethermore's sovereignty. Trade agreements were negotiated. Borders were established. And most importantly, the flow of refugees increased as more families with forbidden bloodlines realized they had somewhere safe to go. 5 more years passed. Aristeas, now 15, had grown into his power. He couldn't sustain the full Etherborn transformation anymore. The ritual had been a one-time merging, never to be repeated, but he could shift between wolf and raven with perfect ease. He'd become a leader among the other prophetic children, not because of destiny but because of choice. His choice to protect them, their choice to follow. Theron and Calliope watched him train in the plaza one morning. His movements fluid and confident, and marveled at who their son had become. "Do you ever regret it?" Calliope asked softly. "Giving up your original pack, your title, everything you had before?" Theron pulled her close, kissing her temple. "Not for a second. Everything I had before was built on laws designed to keep people like you hidden, people like him destroyed. This," he gestured to Ethermore, "thriving and free and full of impossible children living impossible lives. This is what I was meant to build. Not alone. With you." She smiled, leaning into him. The prophecy wasn't about one child after all, was it? It was about all of them. About creating a future where they could exist. Maybe. Or maybe prophecies are just stories we tell ourselves to make sense of chaos. He watched Aristeas laugh with the other Etherborn, saw the easy joy on his son's face, and felt something settle in his chest. "Either way, we did it. We gave them a chance. A messenger ran up to them, breathless and urgent. Alpha, Luna, you need to see this. Now. They followed her to the eastern wall, where a crowd had gathered. Standing at the gate, escorted by 6 guards, was Elder Cleo. She looked impossibly ancient, barely able to stand, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. Elder, Theron said, surprised. We weren't expecting. I'm dying, Cleo interrupted bluntly. 3 months, maybe less. And before I go, I wanted to see what you'd built. Wanted to see if the gamble I took, supporting your right of challenge all those years ago, paid off. She looked past him, at Ethermore spread across the mountainside. At the children playing without fear. At the families building lives without shame. At the new laws being debated in the meeting halls where every voice mattered. Tears rolled down her weathered cheeks. It did, she whispered. Oh, it did. Thank you, Alpha Theron. Thank you, Luna Calliope. You've given us all a gift, the gift of knowing that change is possible. That the future doesn't have to look like the past. She died 6 weeks later, peacefully, in guest quarters overlooking the territory she'd helped create. And at her funeral, held with full honors in Ethermore, 500 wolves howled their grief and gratitude into the mountain sky. 20 years after the throne room went silent, Aristeus stood on the same eastern wall where his parents had once watched the sunset, but now he wore the title of Alpha. Theron had passed it to him 3 years ago, ready to step back, ready to let the next generation lead. It fit him well, leadership earned through choice rather than bloodline alone. The old territories had changed too. Pack laws had been reformed, forbidden bloodlines officially recognized. And the Grand Council now included a representative from Ethermore. It wasn't perfect. Prejudice still existed. Fear still lingered. But it was progress. And below him, in the plaza, a new generation of ether-born children were training. Not the original 73. Their children. And their children's children. The prophecy had become legacy, spreading and growing, transforming the territories from within. Some could shift fully now, moving between forms with the ease of breathing. Others developed new abilities entirely. Wolf eagles, wolf serpents, combinations no one had predicted. The future was beautifully, chaotically uncertain. Still think it was worth it? A voice asked. Aristeus turned to find his mother and father climbing the wall steps together. Older now, gray threading through their hair, but still moving with the grace of warriors. Still holding hands like newlyweds. Every day, he said honestly. Even the hard parts. Even the parts that nearly killed us. He smiled. You taught me that. Both of you. That some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Theron pulled his son into a fierce hug. The kind only fathers give. I'm proud of you. So damn proud. We both are, Calliope added, joining the embrace. You've built something here that will outlast all of us. That's the real prophecy, I think. Not one child changing everything. But one child inspiring others to change themselves. They stood there together, 3 generations of impossible love, watching the sun set over a territory that shouldn't exist, filled with children who shouldn't exist, living lives built on the radical belief that everyone deserves a chance. But stories like this never really end. They just transform. Because late that night, while Ethermore slept, a message arrived. Urgent. Sealed with wax marked with symbols from beyond the 5 territories. From the human lands, where wolves weren't supposed to exist at all. Aristeus broke the seal and read by candlelight. His hands began to shake. What is it? His second-in-command asked. Aristeus looked up. His eyes wide with shock and terrible understanding. There are more. Not just ether-born. Something else. Something bigger. The humans have children exhibiting powers that match our prophecies, but they don't have wolf blood at all. They're calling it the awakening. And they're asking for our help. He held up the message so the other could see the signature at the bottom. It was signed by 50 different families. From 50